The upcoming core set in the TCG is Legacy of Destruction. A lot of cool retrains for Yugi monsters and some new support for existing powerful decks. This set is releasing on April 26th. As we do with every single core set, we need to ask the question, should you buy Legacy of Destruction? And if you decide you want to do that, then make sure to head over to tier0games.com and use code GALZO5. The link is in the description below. Let's dive into it. So as mentioned, Legacy of Destruction releasing April 26th, and there's a lot of returning themes, but also very powerful new themes that are already showing some promise in the OCG, hinting at Tenpai Dragon, of course. But first of all, let's start with the first release of the set that was revealed a while ago, the Shining Sarcophagus. These are some neat Yugi retrains of old monsters with a fresh look and relevant 2024 effects. You got the tricolor gadget, which is the Searcher, you got a new retrain for the Gold Sarcophagus that can search any monster that mention it, and you can also summon those monsters using the Shining Sarcophagus, but you are locked out of the extra deck, which matters a lot. You got a monster negate in the new Silent Magician 0, and you got a targeting negate in the new Silent Swordman 0. A field blow-up with the new Gandora retrain that is also the cover card of the set. And in Infinite Forbidden, we are getting more support for the Shining Sarcophagus archetype in the form of a new Dark Magician card. So this is for the old heads, I guess, for the Yugi boomers. I am not a huge fan of these, but I think a lot of people will like them because it's Yugi's monsters and it's pretty cool. Next up, the meta threat, Tenpai Dragon. This is probably the deck you should be looking out for when you start looking at some singles to buy, because this deck is probably the second best deck in the OCG today. It's very simple. You spit out a lot of fire attribute dragons that are unaffected by your opponent's card effects during the main phase. Then, in the battle phase, each dragon can tag out and synchro summon into a bigger and bigger and bigger synchro dragon. They can all attack multiple times, and by the end of the battle phase, you have inflicted over 30,000 damage with this archetype. And if that doesn't sound good enough, it's a blind second strategy that utilizes floodgates like Heatwave and Dimension Shifter to make sure your opponent has a clear board so you can swing in with a ton of damage with your Synchro Dragons. This deck is showing a lot of promise in the OCG right now, and it's probably going to get even more support in the future. So pay attention to Tenpais because this is probably going to be the one to look out for. Lightsworn is getting new support. We got the new Chaos Ruler Minerva, who sends Lightsworn monsters from the deck to the graveyard up to the number of materials used for it. We got the new Baby Judgment Dragon that can mill any Lightsworn monster when special summoned. And we got the new Vice that will summon itself from the hand by placing another Lightsworn at the top of the deck and then milling two, essentially guaranteeing you mill a Lightsworn. And for some reason, Lightsworn is also getting a new fusion monster, which is Enlightenment Dragon, that is basically an Astral out for Judgment Dragon, and Punishment Dragon as the quick effect can banish all cards on the field and in both graveyards. It sounds pretty strong, but I think banishing your entire graveyard as a Lightsworn player is kind of counterintuitive, so I'm not really sure what I think about the support, but hopefully it's going to be cool for people who like Lightsworn. Next up, we have one of the decks that I'm looking forward to personally because the artwork is just so damn cool, and it's called Raika. They're probably going to change the name from the OCG to the TCG because it's pretty close to Raika, because this is a pile of reptiles, plants, and insects. It uses the Ogdoadic engine and cards like Snake Rain to climb up into multiple Link 3, 4, and 5s that can all search additional interruptions from the deck when summoned. And using the plant links from the Sun Avalon and Sunvine strategy, you can also link up into the Sun Avalon Link 4 and look for your Sun Avalon Bloom trap card from the deck to get an additional full board monster negate as a trap card. And this deck also utilizes the very old Serpentine Princess, which can abuse itself by returning it to the deck to summon your Raika monsters from the graveyard, and this card triggers in the deck, which is never before seen in Yu-Gi-Oh! And it can activate the effect to special summon another reptile, which is kind of crazy. Unfortunately, Raika is not seeing a ton of competitive success, but hopefully, with the right ban list and the right future support, this deck can go beyond. Melodious is getting pretty solid support. Melodious does have branded fusion in the form of Ostinato that can fusion summon using monsters from the deck. But now they're getting two new pendulum scales that are actually quite solid, and another additional two fusion monsters that have really good floating effects and can bounce cards on the field as an interruption. I think this core will actually be extremely cheap with commons and super rare because this is legacy support for a very old archetype. And it's seeing some promise, to be honest. It's pretty competitive right off the bat, and the OCG players are really enjoying it currently. So pay attention to Melodious while you're at it. Move over Dragon Link, because Fiend Link is in the house. So we had a lot of love for Fiends in the past few years. We had Unchained support, Yubel support, and now we have additional Yubel and Fiend support that is making it into a Fiend pile that is doing really well in the OCG right now. A new field spell called Nightmare Throne allows you to destroy or add any Fiend monster with 0 attack and defense from the deck directly to your hand, which means this can search a valuable resource to start off your combo because a lot of Fiends share this attribute. And with the new Infernal Grave Squirmer, you can get so much more extension for free and can compensate with the loss of 2 Sharvaras from the Unchained engine and give you a lot more juice to run your Fiend pile in this deck. And with future Fiend support planned with Fiendsmith that can rank up into a Caesar really easily, we made a video about that as well, I think Fiends are an extremely good investment. And lastly, before we get to the free agents, the single cards, we gotta talk about Ashened. We had a big wave of Ashened support coming in Phantom Nightmare, which was a TCG exclusive. However, disappointingly, this deck is garbage. I mean, it's extremely bad to the point where it's impossible to play. So we are gonna get Ashen support in Legacy of Destruction, but it better be insane. So if you are interested in the deck and interested in hoping that it would somehow get extremely good support, then this is probably the last time you can pick up the core, but after that, if the support is not good, this deck is gonna be free. Now we got some free agents that are not linked to any new theme or archetype releasing in the set. And the first one is probably the best of them all, the Nightmare Apprentice. This is a new illusion retrain for the Apprentice Magician that we all know and love from the Dark Magician archetype, and this one can special summon itself and adds any illusion monster to your hand from your deck. This card is absolutely incredible. This gives a huge boost to the illusion type that up until now has been like kinda lacking except for exactly Chimera. And this card is seeing a ton of play in the OCG because now Branded Chimera has a much more pure engine and doesn't always have to rely on Despia or Branded Fusion. And speaking of illusions, Diabels of the Original Sin is a new illusion monster in the Diabellstar story. And it's also a really good card. You can special summon it for free from the hand if any player has any sinful spoils in their graveyard, and in a fire meta, this is gonna be pretty easy. It also makes sure that your opponent has to set any spells they want to activate before they activate them, meaning that quick play strategies are gonna have a hard time dealing with this card. But also if your opponent sets a card, it can also pop a card on the field, so if they set one, you can just pop it. And this also comes with the new Sinful Spoils Trap, Sinful Spoils Cycle, which basically summons an illusion monster of level 5 or higher directly from your deck. So, illusion enjoyers, rejoice. Voiceless Voice is getting a new continuous spell, which is kinda cool because you need another target for low. Basically, this card allows you to ritual summon during your opponent's turn, which could be really valuable. And this one really helped the Voiceless Voice strategy fight against fire, so hopefully we can get that here as well. We got Decanalogue? Sounds like a cantaloupe. Decanalogue Valdrith. This card is insane. It's a generic rank 10 Omni-Negate monster. It's insane. This is an Xyz Baron de Fleur in a format where Fiends are kinda on the rise, and getting level 10s on the board with cards like Yubel isn't that hard anymore. And if you can get this beast on the board, this is one of the best Xyz monsters ever to release. Omni-Negates, right? And lastly, we have Blink Out, which is a branded lore card. Yay! It features in the artwork the Therion Disc Colosseum with all the Therion bodies and the Fallen of Argyros standing on top of them, but it has a pretty cool effect. It's a pretty cool bounce to any Link monster you control or your opponent controls, and it's not seeing a ton of play, but this card has a bit of a promise to it. And finally, the last card, Metaltronius. I'm saying this is probably going to be a secret rare. The mirror match tool of all time, which allows you to basically cheat out any monster that has 2 common attributes as your opponent's monster, and if it's the same monster, you can banish both face down, or just keep the boss monster you just cheated out for free. Also, it's spell speed 4. No player can respond to this card activation, so that makes it pretty strong. For example, if your opponent controls a Baron de Fleur, you can just special summon a Baron de Fleur from your extra deck. It's pretty cool. And that was Legacy of Destruction, looking like a pretty cool set. Hopefully, the Ashen support and the illusion cards could be really helpful. Of course, there's also a ton of TCG exclusives and imports that usually come out in these core sets, so we're going to be looking out for those as well. If you do want to pick up Legacy of Destruction, go and check out tier0games.com using Galzo5 for 5% off and supporting the channel. You can pick up some boxes or cases, and of course follow me on Twitter to know when the singles pre-sales go live. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.